All right. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Denis Trottier, the Chief Mental Health Officer at KPMG. Denis is passionate about breaking the stigmas that surround mental health. He's involved with many mental health initiatives internally at KPMG as well as in the community. Denis is here with us today as Impact Spotlight Speaker Series around mental health. Denis will share his own story with mental health, as well as explain his role at KPMG as the CHMO and the importance of being mentally healthy at work. Denis has great resources to share with us today, so without further ado, let's get started. Denis, thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for the energy you bring to this space and giving me the opportunity to share some insights with the entire student body. Mental health does not discriminate. It doesn't matter what level you're at. So important that we have discussions like this more often. So thank you for reaching out to me.
Of course, agreed. It's very important to have these discussions when they aren't very talked about on a regular basis. So our first question to kind of get to know you better is, what has your professional career at KPMG looked like over the years?
You know, it's been amazing, Gabrielle. I joined our firm in '86 when it was the P and the M in the KPMG. So this is where in your head you're going, oh, Denis is a dinosaur. But you guys keep me young because I love working with students and so on. So, grew up in Northern Ontario where there was zero diversity. You sure didn't talk about mental health. I remember school teachers when we were misbehaving, not that I was a bad kid, Gabrielle, but often they would threaten that we'll send you to North Bay because there was a psychiatric institution there, right? So how things have changed that now, in school, depending on the age bracket, you learn about Big White Wall, Safe Talk, Jack.org, right? So we sure didn't have that when I grew up, and we sure didn't have that throughout the bulk of my career. I headed up our private company practice for Eastern Canada, so I'm a CPA, professional advisor, and I have lived experience with clinical depression, and I was overseeing the mental health lens for KPMG as part of our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Council. And when I decided to take early retirement, the firm approached me and said they would create this amazing role for me. And when they told me what it was, I didn't even know what the letters stood for. I said, CMH what? And the lady said, Chief Mental Health Officer. And I said, does that exist? What is it? And the answer was, well, Bell has a wellness officer, but this is the mental health lens only. So it's a very humbling role where I feel that you're able to make a difference in somebody's life almost daily during COVID, just by giving them guidance, right? Because you become overwhelmed and the resources, it's a bit of a labyrinth. So I hope to share with our student body today some of the various support tools that they can go to. So been an amazing 30 plus career, and now I've been in this role for 4 years now, and it is an amazing role. I love it.
That's amazing. So it's definitely been a long journey, but a great journey, it sounds like. So I guess leading into our second question then, based off of your experience with mental health, why is mental health such an important topic to you, and how has it affected you personally throughout your professional career?
Well, I realize now, Gabrielle, because of lived experience, it goes back 13 years ago now. I was no different than probably many of our listeners. I have my little rubber brain here where this thing is telling you you're no good, you're broken, you won't be able to do your job again, you're going to fail the exams. If I ask my friends, they're going to judge me. And now that I know what I didn't know back then, that is so far from reality, right? If I approach Gabrielle for some help or some support, you're not going to judge me. It's actually the total opposite that is so humbling that Denis would trust you to allow you in my circle of care, right? But the cognitive side can be so strong sometimes, right? So it's important because really it trumps everything else, right? If we think about this for a sec, you can have all the technical training in the world when you join the business world, but if you're not mentally healthy, and the mental health and the physical health go hand in hand, how we all know. But this one, is the one that we don't talk about, right? Like when we hear mental health, often our mind goes to mental illness. I want to remind our listeners that mental health, we all have it. Everybody listening today has mental health, but it doesn't mean we're mentally ill, right? So it's a spectrum. So I think what we're trying to accomplish today with our listeners is give them some tools, give them some ideas to realize that it's okay not to be okay, but it's what you do about it, right? And the more we can openly talk about this, the success, Gabrielle, of my role has been defined to making me redundant. Redundancy looks like the day that you and I and our colleagues can be standing by the water cooler talking about mental health, just like we would if you had a ski accident, right?
Right.
So it's how it affected me personally. I can honestly say that when you live through a cognitive challenge, you grow stronger from it because one, it forces you to educate yourself on the illness, right? And then maybe you realize that okay, like maybe it was situational, a divorce or a loss of a loved one, but it could be just genetic. In Denise's case, it's genetic. So instead of fighting it, the sooner you accept that, hey, that's the card I was dealt with in life, but what do I do about it, right? So honestly, I think you grow stronger from it in that you develop new coping mechanisms. You put a few new tools in your mental health toolbox so that when maybe you're starting to slide a bit again, that you're able to draw on those tools. And while I'm on tools, one thing I always joke with older folks, this is a younger crowd here, but I work with a lot of folks in their mid 40s, mid 50s, and I remind them that the tools in your mental health toolbox, they're probably the same one as when you were university age. And perhaps they're not working now, right? They might have worked when you were at university. So the point being, make sure you're constantly refreshing the tools in your toolbox. And today I know our listeners will find out about a few new tools to add to their toolbox, refresh, or maybe start their toolbox if they don't have one individually.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that is an important message that we can really bring to our viewers today, because I find that we hear a lot about mental health and we hear a lot about the stats and the stigmas, but it's hard to find out how you can actually help yourself be mentally healthy.
It hasn't impacted me negatively in any way, shape, or form, Gabrielle, if that's sort of what you were getting at your question, because oftentimes, and living proof of that, of how things are changing, onboarding 500 new team members, not afraid in the chat to say, hey, I'm anxious like I've never been. Can I reach out to you afterward? Young lady about your age that I interviewed 2 years ago, look at the marks. There was a semester with the marks, kind of. So I just asked, hey, you demonstrate the ability to have amazing marks. What happened during the semester? Young lady said, I suffered through depression. I got help and I'm well. Just like that, without skipping a heartbeat. That's what makes my day, right? Because honestly, if you're going to join an organization that treats you differently because you've asked for help, my words coming out of my mouth, if you were at KPMG and you said, oh, Denis, I can't tell Bill or Sally because they're going to judge me, I would say, Gabrielle, I want you to resign, and I will resign. Because we both don't want to work for an organization that treat us differently because we've asked for help. And that's not the reality. It's not like that. You may get a few people along the way that maybe say things that are not right, but you got to learn to let that go because I chalk it up to lack of education, right?
Yeah,
Like
no,
I've
for
had
sure.
people say, Denis, you and your condition. I go, wait a sec, what do you mean my condition? I'm top of my game, right? And then they apologize. It's ignorance. Let's be honest. We're not born with a rule book on all these different illnesses, right? So my role as a chief mental health officer is exactly a lot of awareness, moving the dial of our team members so that they understand the language and what to say, not to say, how to be good in the support role.
No, I think that's so important, is bringing the awareness so people know how to support those who do need help, because it's inventable that one day or another someone is going to need help. So it's important to have that awareness.
It's 2 and 5, right? And it's probably 3 and 5 because I doubt you and I have ever met anybody that have self-diagnosed, hey, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, right? So it impacts, and I normally do surveys when I'm doing onboarding or new training. And the question I ask is, who in this room has either suffered themselves or have supported someone who has? And it's always almost 100%. You know, the 3% that haven't voted yet, they haven't figured out what button to use. So it goes to show the importance of having tools to draw on and raising our individual knowledge in this space.
Yes, no, 100%. It's so common, and so it's so important to have that awareness for sure.
Yeah.
So leading off of that then, what was the talk around mental health like when you were growing up, and how has it changed over the years?
Like I alluded to earlier, you know, school teachers saying, we're going to send you to North Bay. It simply wasn't something, Gabrielle, that was talked about. Um, you know, back in the day, somebody hits a cognitive, the common word I remember as a kid, oh, so-and-so had a nervous breakdown. What the hell does that mean? Nervous breakdown, right? You're admitted to hospital, maybe a needle to calm you down a bit, boom, you're out. You know, it's just a topic. And to this day, it's very generational. When Denis does a live seminar, your age bracket to 30-year-old, high five me, Denis, I get this, my brother, there's still an element of stigma of thinking, oh my God, am I going to get hired if they know and all of that. But in general, you are way more open because you've heard about Big White Walls, Safe Talk, Chat.org. So thank you for being a voice in this space, the 20 to 30, the 30 to 40. Hey, Denis, can I talk to you? We find a private spot. They make sure nobody's snooping, but they're talking to me about themselves. The 40 plus, they come to talk to me about a friend, but I know it's them, right? So it's not that our parents are bad parents. It's they never grew up in an era where this was talked about. And what I have learned so much being a white male from Northern Ontario, I knew this, but it's even more complicated than I ever thought, Gabrielle, is you overlay ethnicity over this, ethnic background, upbringing, religious beliefs, and depending on the culture, the self-imposed stigma, taboo. Like I see things that you just go, really, right? Like mom and dad often are not very good in the circle of care. Like that is something that I see. Why? They never grew up in the area. So hence, as a young student, where parents are supposed to be good in the circle of care, right? You open up to mom and dad and they think they're a doctor, do this, don't sweat that, as if Gabrielle hasn't tried that already if she's suffering, right? So it's important that our parents to kind of learn the role of listening to youth in a non-judgmental basis and make sure you're using resources, right? But that's not what they normally do, right? So it's
Yes.
important that our toolboxes be equipped because I guess what I'm saying is sometimes that perceived circle of care that you should have, it's no mystery that, you know, young university students call the Bell hotline or a support line because they need the support somewhere, right? So things have, it's changed a lot over the years. Like I fast forward to current day, Gabrielle, this is on the agenda now. Like many companies that reach out to me, they talk about this. It's like health and safety. And to take it to the extreme, we just went through an election, right? The Liberals had this in their campaign that they would make the Psychological Safety in the Workplace Act law. It's not law. So, you know, we've gone from maybe zero, if we could, to this will be law. A lot of these tools that we'll talk about in a few minutes, they're free now.